We are back on the Morgan Streetman Show, and we've talked, Morgan, about the documentary 2000 Mules, so you see what's in that. And then you have the Dominion voting machines and data that's been gathered on those. And then you have folks who may have been voting illegally. So you have all these things, and you have to realize that with all this, votes, and I should say elections, have serious consequences and outcomes.
That's right. And we see that
change policy. Yeah.
We see it playing out every day in our own lives. We see it at the gas pumps. We see it at the supermarket. And folks, there's absolutely no question you can trace the beginnings of this explosion in inflation to the beginning of Biden's time in office. Period. The end. You can look at the charts. Go pull the inflation chart over the last 20 years, and you'll see the line. You'll see when it really starts to change. Now, we have told you for years, and I believe it's the truth, that the inflation numbers that the government shares with us or puts out for us to consume are falsely low. They're too low. They're actual real inflation is higher than what the numbers show. But there's no question that inflation has exploded. At least it was somewhat manageable before. At least we could sort of live with it. It's like death by a thousand. It's so slow. It just takes forever for all of your money to become completely worthless, so you hardly even notice it, right? It's like the frog, right? And if you got a pot of boiling water and you throw the frog in, the frog jumps right out. But if you got a pot of lukewarm water and you put the frog in and you turn it to boil, the frog will stay in there till it boils. Why? Because it's gradually boiling as opposed to jumping into the hot water. So that's what regular inflation, as we've experienced in this country for basically since the founding of the Federal Reserve and the creation of a fiat money system that ultimately was disconnected from being backed by gold and thus having some kind of backstop on exactly how much they could print, because we'd have to get more gold if you wanted to print more dollars, right? We don't have that problem anymore. They could just print as much as they want, and that's exactly what they've been doing for well on almost 20 years now. They've been running things that way with just blowing money out, and they call it helicopter money for a reason. It's like a helicopter's flying around and people are just throwing $100 bills out of it. They're just dousing us with money. So we have all of that going. You've also got stuff, and now I'm getting off track a lot. To get back to the border, you've also looked at what's happening at the southern border. We got hundreds of thousands of people coming over every single month. These people, as we've told you, a lot of them, at least from the Democrat perspective, they want to turn them into not just undocumented migrants, but undocumented Democrats. And the way they plan to do that is giving them cell phones, giving them all kinds of welfare, giving them places to stay, food to eat. We've covered all that with you. And that in and of itself is a cost when we can't even pay for our own people. They can't give money for small businesses, can't give $48 billion for small businesses, but we're going to give $40 billion to Ukrainian government pensions and government salaries. I mean, the truth is, as we've told you plenty of times, we're bankrupt, but now they're giving all this money away to folks that aren't even citizens who haven't paid any taxes and frankly should not be here. It is not legal for them to cross the border in that way. There is a way to come here as an immigrant. We have laws. We have policies. They should follow them. Well, a lot of this stuff then has other consequences that you don't even think about, and how do you even put a dollar figure on these? Here's a story out of Houston just last week where a Houston area grandfather and his 4 grandsons were all killed by somebody who is a member of the Mexican mafia who was in prison, all right, this guy is one of their assassins. He's already a convicted murderer. He's in prison. He's on the prison bus, and somehow he's able to escape from the prison bus, and he goes on he basically, what you would call in the old days, he goes on the lam, right, Pat George? That means he goes on the run from jail. He goes on the lam, and he gets away with it for a while. Well, then he happens upon poor Mark Collins and his 4 grandsons, 18, 16, and 2 of them were twins at 11 years old. So, just snuffing out a young family. Did I forget to mention the fact that he murdered all of them? He murders the father and the 4 grandsons, murders them all, takes their truck, takes some weapons that they had at their house so that he now has something that he can use against the police. Well, he winds up in a shootout with the Texas law enforcement, and ultimately gets killed on the side of a highway because when they pull him over, he gets out with the gun just shooting. By the way, he was shooting at them also while he was driving. So, I mean, this is the kind of guy you want in your country, right? When we're looking for immigrants, this is what we're looking for. Why, life in America is not interesting enough. We need to have gunfights on the streets. We need to have young families doing absolutely nothing wrong, just being violently murdered by somebody who's already murdered other people. You talk about human rights. Let's keep this guy around. Let's get the Innocence Project on his case, and let's try to get him out of jail one day so that he can be that fine citizen that he obviously aspires to be. And shouldn't we get more people like this into our country? I mean, what are we doing? Folks, you see I'm being sarcastic. You see it. I mean, it feels like America, and believe me, we're not there yet. But gosh, doesn't it sometimes feel like America's almost turning into a third world country, the way things are going?
Oh, there's some scary things.
There's a lot of things going on. And we're seeing too many stories like this. And I'll tell you what, for that family, for his wife, for his children, the parents of his grandsons, for these folks, their life will never be the same. It's easy to just pass off a story like this. You say, well, that happens sometimes. Their life will never be the same. And you know what? Yeah, could it have happened by somebody who was a citizen who could have done it? Yeah, it's possible. But we don't see as many of those stories, although, frankly, we see a rash of these shooting stories lately. Whole bunch to get into there. I don't really think we've got time to do that. But, it's so amazing to me when I see a story and then I don't hear a commentary that I think is right to the center of it. And then several days pass and I do hear the commentary. Unfortunately, I can only get on the radio here Monday morning, so I have to wait. During the week, I've got things that I might want to say, but I have to wait until the next Monday. On Ramos, one of the things that caught my attention was that he had a Daniel Defense AR-15, which is a very expensive, a very nice rifle, but it's very expensive. Be at least $2,000, maybe $2,500, depending on how you get it configured. And I'm going, first of all, how does an 18-year-old know about Daniel Defense? I mean, that's something like a guy who was a contractor in Afghanistan or Iraq, who was a former special forces or something, who was now a military contractor, would want to get a Daniel Defense or something like that. That's who that rifle would be for, somebody who's really an operator and needs to use it. But meanwhile, we've got an 18-year-old kid who not only knows about it, but he goes out and purchases it when he could have gotten an AR-15 that did the exact same thing for his purposes for maybe $800. So why spend the extra money? And where did he get the extra money? I thought he was so broke he had to wear the same pants to school every day. That's why kids were making fun of him. So where did he get the money for a $2,500 rifle?
And wasn't he working part-time at Wendy's?
Exactly. So did he get it from Wendy's? Who knows? There's just something wrong with that piece of the story in my mind. Now, what's interesting to me was that several days passed. As soon as I heard that, I said, wait, how did he get a Daniel Defense? Several days passed. Well, then I heard Tucker Carlson talking about it. I think it was like Thursday or Friday. He brought it up on his show, saying what I was thinking. So anyway, it's for me, it's sometimes nice to see that confirmed other places. I'll tell you the truth. I would like to have gotten on quicker to be able to share that with you. But that, to me, is an interesting fact point that leads to some questions about how this kid got his funding. There's all kinds of other questions. Psychoactive drugs that we feed to children for depression. How about puberty blockers and things like what was going on with this kid medically? Who knows? A lot to get into there, and we really don't have time to do it. And we did want to get to a couple of other stories, though. But the point of the last little segment was that elections have consequences, and we see that. And we see that with our current president, who's actually set to outpace his predecessors in terms of the vacation time that he's taken. You want to know where Joe Biden is? Probably in Delaware. Any day of the week. I mean, Max works 3 days a week, and then he's off for another long weekend in Delaware. And why not? After all, why not? I mean, what's wrong with that? I mean, they just say he's the most powerful man in the whole world. He's in charge of the most important country in the whole world, the biggest economy in the world, the biggest military, et cetera. And why should he take a long weekend every single weekend? I mean, don't you get a long weekend every single weekend? Don't you get to fly off to, your vacation home on the beach every weekend if you want to? Don't you have a whole cadre of people that go with you every weekend?
Unplug.
Can't you do that in your own life? No. Rest of us have to stay. We had to work a full 5-day week. Some of us work 6 and 7 days a week.
And we have to be plugged into our jobs, it seems like, 24/7.
That's right. Yeah, you don't answer an email right away, you're in trouble. Joe Biden, he's in Delaware. He's just hanging out at the beach again. He's on his bike again, playing with Major again. Oh, Joe. Okay, meanwhile, we got a baby formula crisis in this country. I think in a lot of cities now, it's like 90% out of stock. Baby formula is. People can't find baby formula, which is a pretty big deal if you got a baby and you can't find baby formula unless you want to be breastfeeding, which has its own set of challenges. But, obviously is the natural way to feed a child when it's so young that it can't just, eat what you're eating on your plate. The other way, and I'll tell you, even a lot of parents who breastfeed supplement with baby formula because there's so much requirements of nutrition that the child has. But we've got a major problem with folks getting baby formula. This all surrounds a shutdown of an Abbott nutrition facility up in Michigan that they're now announcing they're going to reopen. By the way, this was shut down supposedly for bacterial contamination. Some people suggest that the shutdown is sort of even just a put on, that they really didn't need to shut everything down. You look into the strains of the bacteria, they've checked them to figure out which strain were in the factory and which strain the two children that got sick had, and they're different strains, so therefore that could not have come from the factory. Also, there was never any bacteria found in any of the actual samples of product, but nevertheless, they had shut this factory down since I believe it was February of this year. And you see that, right? You see the factory shut down, and then a couple of months later, the stories start about there's no baby formula available. Well, gee, I wonder why that is. They shut the factory down, and now they're going to restart the factory. Now they're going to ride down from the hills to shoot the wounded and save the day. They're going to restart the Abbott factory that one wonders, and a lot of commentators are wondering, why did we stop it in the first place? But lest you think that's all your president has got planned to fix this problem, don't think that way, because your president is flying in baby formula from other countries. And you got to listen to this clip. Here we go. Here's how much he's bringing in. You're never going to believe it. Listen.
Today, we're announcing the United Airlines has agreed to offer cargo space for Kendall NutriCare for the delivery of 3.7 bottles of the formula.
Whoa!
Here in the States.
Whoa!
That's going to solve everything.
Biden to the rescue, bringing in a whole 3.7. I mean, thank you, United Airlines, for making room for 3.7 bottles of baby formula in your cargo space. I mean, we cannot thank you enough for that incredible sacrifice.
Problem solved.
Problem solved. I mean, there you go. You know what? Take the rest of the week off, Joe. Go to Delaware. You've earned it, buddy. You just solved the crisis. Aren't you glad he's your president? I mean, really. Aren't you glad Joe Biden is here to save the day? Well, I know I am. We got something really interesting for you on the Out There segment when we come back. Thank you for listening to the Morgan Streetman Show. We hope you enjoyed what you heard, and if you did, please click like and subscribe to help us out. And remember that we recommend that you exercise your brain at least once a week.